if you're considering selling your home, watch this before you call a real estate agent. One of the things that you're going to want to understand before you talk to a real estate agent is know what your real payoff amount is for your home. You really need to know what your bottom line is, how much money you need to make from the sale of your home. And so this isn't just about your mortgage balance, but sometimes your mortgage balance can be different than your payoff amount from your mortgage. And so you'll need to get that number directly from your mortgage company or bank or whoever is holding that mortgage to understand that number. The difference is going to come from like the interest. Maybe they break that down per day for the interest rate, or maybe it's per month. And so the amount of your mortgage balance may be different than your payoff amount. In addition to your mortgage, anything else related to that home is also going to need to be paid off. Any HELOCs or any kind of second mortgage, of course, any prepayment kind of penalty, that may be included in that payoff amount as well. And so this is obviously a number that you're going to want to understand before you talk to an agent. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Home Sale Hacks. We make videos every week about how to sell your own home without a real estate agent. Another thing that you're going to want to do before you talk to a real estate agent, if that's the route you decide to go, is pulling your own comparable homes in your area to understand what your home is worth. You don't necessarily want to take your real estate agent's word for how much they say your home is worth. You really need to do this homework on your own to at least have a rough understanding of the value of your home before you talk to that real estate agent. This is a great way to sift through the agents and figure out, hey, is this agent being real with me, or is this agent being full of shit? Like, you want to make sure that you're talking to an agent who's going to be honest with you. And so one great way to look for some comparable homes in your area that has sold is on Zillow or Realtor.com, any one of these kind of real estate apps where you can look at recently sold homes. Now, you want to look for homes that have been sold within the last maybe 3 to 6 months. I would not suggest going anything farther back than 6 months, but anything within the last 3 or 6 months, similar home to your similar size, similar age home, ideally within about a mile or even better within the same neighborhood. This is going to give you a good sense for what your home would be worth. And then a big one for many real estate agents that you want to be aware of before you call them is this strategy that many agents take, where they talk to a potential seller and they say, hey, yeah, we can sell your home for this super high amount. And then when they get that contract, then they try to start convincing you, the seller, to lower that price. It's kind of like a bait and switch that some real estate agents try to do. Certainly not all real estate agents, but some may try to do this. So let's break this down a little bit. What this looks like is that they will go and they'll meet you at the house and they'll tell you, yeah, this house looks amazing. And when they start talking about how much the home list price would be, they may agree with you, or they may say a very high number that sounds very attractive. But then when they get that contract and they go back to the office and they start doing their own homework and research on this property, then it may be that they give you a call or email later and say, hey, we might actually need to list this home a little lower in price. Or what would be even worse would be if you list that home at that very high number and then they call you and say, hey, maybe we need to have some price reductions for the price of the home. Now you have wasted all of that time that the home has been on the market for an inappropriately high price. You now have multiple days on market and they're now telling you that we need to lower the price. This can certainly hurt your ability to sell your home. Another big one that you need to understand before you call a real estate agent is how commissions work. And this has changed significantly in the last few years. A few years ago, there was a National Association of Realtor lawsuit and a settlement that kind of changed the way that commissions work. And so this has always been negotiable. Commissions have always been negotiable between you and the real estate agent, but now we do things a little bit differently. Before this lawsuit and this settlement, it used to be that the seller would agree how much they were going to pay the buyer's real estate agent before the home was even listed. And so in addition to the amount that you were going to be paying your own agent, the seller's agent, your agent, you would also agree how much you were going to pay the buyer's agent before you listed the home, before you got any offers on the home, before you saw how the marketing was going to go. And so now what is becoming more typical is that we negotiate the amount for the buyer's agent's commission when we get the offer on the home. And so that amount that you are going to be paying the buyer's agent, which again has always been typical, the seller has always paid for the seller's real estate agent agent and the buyer's real estate agent, but now we're making that decision once we get an offer on the home. And so if you're getting a full price offer and the terms of the offer are reasonable, then maybe it's worth paying that buyer's real estate agent the full 3%. But if you're getting a lowball offer, maybe the other terms of the offer are not reasonable, then maybe it's not worth paying the buyer's agent the full 3%. Either way, it's all negotiable, and it really ultimately is up to the seller. And now we're making that decision when we get the offer instead of having to blindly make that decision about the commission amount before listing the home. Another big one that you want to understand before you talk to a real estate agent is your timeline. Do you need to sell quickly, or do you have plenty of time? Because this is obviously going to affect how you are marketing the home and how aggressively you're marketing the home. And so if you obviously need to sell quickly, then you maybe need to be doing things differently, or maybe your real estate agent will be marketing the home differently. But if you have plenty of time to sell the home and let the home sit on the market, which can be kind of tricky, but you can certainly do that. You can certainly have that patience and wait for the right buyer. This is a great idea for someone who has maybe a unique home, a home that is not like a typical kind of home that you would find in your area. Maybe it's a home with, a lot more land than what is typical in your area. Maybe it's a home that has a basement with a full kitchen, like an in-law suite. If in your area an in-law suite is not typical, it would be understandable for that home to be on the market for a little longer and you needing to wait for the right buyer to come along to pay the appropriate price. And then speaking of finding the right buyers, you also want to understand the difference between a non-contingent buyer and a contingent buyer. Of course, if you're getting to a point where you're realizing this is too much to handle and you're just like, hey, let's just get a real estate agent on board. Let's move on to plan B so we can get an agent to sell this home for max value. Feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Even if you just have a question about what it's like to sell your home, I'm more than happy to help. But the difference between a contingent buyer and a non-contingent buyer really has to do with whether or not they need to sell their home in order to buy. And this is important because if the buyer needs to sell their home and they have that contingency in place when trying to buy a home, that contingency is typically going to last all the way until the close date of your home that you are selling them. And so let's break this down a little bit. So let's say I'm the buyer and you're the seller, and I am selling my home in order to use those funds as a down payment to buy your home. What I would typically do is I would have a contingency in my offer that says if my home does not sell by the close date of the one that I'm buying from you, I'm no longer obligated to buy your home and I would get my deposit back. Obviously, this can be difficult for many sellers, but unfortunately, this is kind of the way that the market is right now. Because there are far more sellers than there are buyers, many buyers have the ability and the negotiating power to do that. So as a seller, you don't want to necessarily sell to a buyer who has that contingency. And so understanding the difference between those two buyers is very important. And then when it comes to receiving an offer for your home, there's a difference between a high offer and a best offer. In other words, the purchase price of the offer is not the only detail in the offer, and taking an offer that has the highest purchase price is not necessarily the best offer. For example, if you have two offers and one is maybe a conventional loan and the other is an FHA loan, it's typically thought that a borrower who is using a conventional loan is a bit more qualified than someone who's using an FHA loan. The reason that borrower is getting an FHA loan is maybe they have a lower credit score, or maybe they have less of a down payment, or whatever it might be. And so to get an offer for full price from an FHA borrower maybe is not as good as getting an offer just below full price from a conventional loan borrower. And so two very different ideas here. The best offer versus the highest offer, not necessarily the same thing. And then when you finally do talk to a real estate agent about selling your home, you really want to make sure that you understand their marketing plan. It is not really enough to just put the home on the MLS and then they're going to say, well, also Zillow is going to have the listing and Realtor.com and Redfin. Like, yeah, that's the norm. That's the standard. What else are we going to be doing to market that home. And so this is very important. You want to understand what you are signing up for, what you are agreeing to, and what that real estate agent is going to be doing to market the home. In addition to listing the home on the MLS, we can also be doing professional photography. This is very important. Maybe it's professional videography, someone who's going to go through the home and make a video of the home that can then be used as online marketing for that listing. Maybe they're going to be listing the home with their brokerage, and so they will give the agents in their own office or their own brokerage a bit of a heads up that that listing is coming on the market. This is another great way to list the home. Another big question that I would be asking that agent in regards to the marketing is whether or not they're going to be using staging in the home. Maybe this means having a professional stager come into the home and kind of help declutter and rearrange furniture in a way that's going to be better for selling the home. Or maybe that means the home is vacant and a professional staging company is going to come in to put furniture in the home. Either way, you really want to know, is that agent going to be using staging? Because right now, this is one of the biggest differences between the homes that are selling and not selling, is how they're being staged. So certainly a big one. And then lastly, you want to make sure to talk to multiple real estate agents when it comes to listing your home. You don't just need to go with the first one that you talk to. You want to go with the best one that fits your needs. And so getting multiple opinions is certainly a great idea. But keep in mind that here on Home Sale Hacks, we make videos every week about how to sell your own home without a real estate agent. The truth is that you can sell your home and not have to call a real estate agent at all. It is very possible to sell your own home, and while it can be kind of difficult, especially in this market, it's totally doable. In fact, we made an entire video outlining the steps to sell your own home. You can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.